This is your Beardy Farmer, and recently I was a Beardy Picker. Wanted to show you some of my finds. Went to about 4 different sales and got a variety of items. First sale, I got modern vice grip pliers for a fraction of the price buying them new. These are extremely handy around the farm with the locking mechanism. Almost makes it like an extra hand sometimes, and when you do a lot of things on your own, it's invaluable. This is a leather hole punch. Don't really have an acute need for it, but one time I did, and I bought one on online, and it was just some made in China trash, and I actually ended up bending the handles from squeezing so hard because the bits were so dull and the material was so weak. But I don't know, might end up bending this one too. This little name on there, Bernard. Might come in handy in a pinch, but if all else fails, you can always use a nail and a hammer to put a hole in leather. And this little gem here is something I've actually been looking for a while. I have a more modern one, but the older ones had a section on forging, which is also blacksmithing. It talks about material hardening and things like that. And in the newer editions, they removed that section as, you know, machining came into a more modern age. They abandoned that. So for $3, I figure I can't go wrong with that. Another sale was an old farm, and this is something I've been always kind of interested in having. It feeds my addiction for old rusty tools. And this is what you call a hay knife. Now, back before we had balers, or people could afford a baler and they were still around, farmers would loose stack their hay in their barn. They actually had special mechanisms to pick it up off the ground and elevate it up, but that's a different story. But when you get a whole hay mow full of hay, and it's kind of hard to fork it out because it's just such an irregular shape, so you'd take this and you could cut out a chunk of it so you could fork it out easier. And it's might even be handmade. It's nice because it's got both of its handles still, so that's cool. This they call an ADZ, A-D-Z, I believe it's called, and it's got a pretty primitive looking handle on there. But they used this before they had a lot of other tools to make the sides of logs flat, so you could use them, cut them down to like timber frame construction. And if you're not careful with this, this could easily take your toe off if you're not careful. For $1, another little razor knife, Stanley, made in America. Can't beat it. Sometimes it's actually very useful to have a fixed blade. You got to do the extra step of removing this screw, taking the body apart, putting the blade in there, and then closing it up again as the more modern slide that you would see where my thumb is. But these are handy because there's sometimes you don't want that blade accidentally sliding in and you know, doing some damage to you. Whenever you're working with tools, that's always a possibility. And the last thing from that sale was this blade here, and I've not really been able to figure out what it is by doing a couple internet searches. I'm sure plenty of those tool experts out there could tell me. It could be for chopping up hay, kind of like the hay saw, but more of a chopping motion. Some sort of harvesting tool, and it could even be handmade. That might be a hand weld on there, and gosh, I don't know, but the price was right. I didn't know what it was, and it's a nice piece of steel, so I had to have it. It's who I am. Third sale was more of a homeowner sale, and this is a great cookbook. I have a more modern edition, and they've been printing this thing since 1931, and this one is 43. But that's a great great cookbook. Can't go wrong with it. That's where my brownie recipe came from, my modern one. So I figured for $3 it was totally worth it getting an older version. Now, I haven't had time to look at this one yet, but I've actually seen it referenced in other cooking books and even online recipes, and food blogs and stuff have referenced this book. It retails for $40, and I got it for way less than that. So that's pretty sweet. And they also had this, it's a smaller hoe, maybe for pinpoint weeding. And you can also drag it across the soil like that to build a trench, which would be perfect for planting garlic. So maybe I'll be a little more efficient next year when I'm planting my garlic. And the last sale was actually, it was a lady moving out. So it's more of a moving sale than an actual estate sale, but it's got a little hook on there, and I figure I could probably use this to blanch vegetables in before canning. And if all else fails, I could hang it up somewhere and hook a hose up and make a little shower out of it. So those are my picks for this week. See you later.